Welcome to Telesur. This is From the South, from Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin with our stories. We start in Ecuador, where former President Rafael Correa has rejected a ruling by a judge to take him to trial over a controversial case of an abduction. Supporters of Correa gathered outside the Court of Justice in Quito during this ruling. Judge Daniela Camacho accused Correa of being involved in an alleged kidnapping of a lawmaker back in 2012. Former Vice President of Ecuador, Jorge Glass, has been hospitalized. Doctors say his condition is stable. Glass was rushed to a hospital in the capital, Quito, on Tuesday night. He apparently began to suffer blackouts. His wife said his health had deteriorated sharply. He had been on hunger strike in prison for 17 days in protest for being moved to a high-security prison in La Tacunga. He said this was political persecution.
Lo hemos hecho.
Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has the latest.
Hello, yes, indeed, the Ecuadorian former Vice President Jorge Glass was hospitalized after 17 days of hunger strike. This news was updated on the Twitter account of his lawyer, Franco Lor, who confirmed the condition of Jorge Glass was deteriorated and now his life is in danger. Also, now Jorge Glass is in a hospital in Quito where his medical team said his health is stable for now. And also in a press conference, his friends and close friends of the Citizen Revolution movement confirmed the really bad conditions inside the jail that Jorge Glass has to throw out. He said that Jorge Glass didn't have a bathroom close to him inside the jail, and also that the authorities inside the jail and the authorities of Ecuador are violating his fundamental rights and freedoms now. He is also demanding to the authorities and to the international media outlets to take care of Jorge Glass and also to tell about his situation, about his condition now inside the jail. For now, Jorge Glass will be at the hospital in Quito, and they are calling to the authorities of Ecuador. His close friend, legal team, and family said that the responsible of his condition and now of his life is the current government. So it's all for now. Back to you at the studio.
That was Denise Herrera from Quito. In an exclusive interview with Telesur, Correa spoke about what he calls the plot to steal the vice presidency from Jorge Glass.
If I were living in Ecuador, I would be in prison, just like Jorge Glass. I still have great solidarity for Jorge, who was trusted in the Ecuadorian legal system. We all believe in it, without knowing the scope of the plot that was being planned behind the scenes. He's in prison due to the Odebrecht scandal. Let the world know, not one of those who confessed to being involved in that case were ever brought to trial. Those who paid people off, they are not even under investigation, because they made a deal to steal the vice presidency from Glass and they walk away free. Jorge trusted in Ecuadorian justice and now has been in prison for nearly a year. But he's a brave man of integrity. And now he's on hunger strike because authorities decided to move him to a maximum security prison as a response to an unrelated case of another former member of my government who fled the country.
Now to the United States. After Tuesday's midterm elections, Democrats have taken control of the House of Representatives, while Republicans have expanded their majority in the Senate. Democrats have taken 221 seats in the lower house, gaining 3 more seats than was needed to control it. But in the Senate, Republicans have won 51 seats, enough to control the chamber. Those are against the 40 seats that the Democrats have taken. Also in the United States, the Attorney General Jeff Sessions has been forced out of office by President Donald Trump after Sessions stepped down as a judge in an investigation into Russia's role in the 2016 presidential race. Senate's Democratic leader Chuck Schumer has urged Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker not to interfere with this investigation.
I find the timing very suspect, number one, but number two, our paramount view is that any Attorney General, whether this one or another one, should not be able to interfere with the Mueller investigation in any way. They should not be able to end it. They should not be able to limit it. They should not be able to interfere with Mueller going forward and doing what he thinks is the right thing. And that will help guide us as we go through this process.
During a press conference earlier, an unusual interaction took place between President Trump and CNN media reporter Jim Acosta, when Acosta started questioning the president about the migrant caravan and then transitioning to a question about the Russia investigation. The exchange got heated.
That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN,
right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may ask one other question, Mr. President, if I may ask
Peter,
one
go
other
ahead.
question, are you worried?
That's enough. That's
Mr.
enough.
President,
That's
I was
enough.
going to ask one of the other folks.
That's enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me. That's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax.
Are you-
That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
These elections saw many historic moments, with Congress getting its first Muslim Congresswoman, Rashid Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. Another victory was that of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democratic socialist who is the youngest woman elected to Congress.
What we are standing up for is what is right. That's right. And we will never be ashamed for fighting for what is right.
We fight to protect our immigrant families, our neighbors, our children, our planet, our communities. I promise to always have your back.
The first openly gay governor has also been elected. Democrat Jared Polis defeated the Republican Walker Stapleton in Colorado. He has been very critical of President Trump's policies during the campaign.
Tonight, right here in Colorado, we proved that no barrier should stand in the way of pursuing our dreams. We proved that we're an inclusive state that values every contribution, regardless of someone's sexual orientation or gender identity.
We have more stories coming up, but you can follow us. We're on Twitter at Telesur English and my account at Carla G. Telesur. We'll be back. Welcome back. Representatives of the migrant caravan in Mexico City are hoping to meet with President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador on Thursday. While migrants say they are scheduled to do so, the meeting is yet to be confirmed. Hundreds participated in a meeting that they had where they discussed exactly when they will leave the Mexican capital and the routes that they will take to reach the United States. Some migrants said they wished to stay longer in the capital, while others wanted to continue the journey as soon as possible.
According to Donald Trump, we are criminals. Thank God we are not criminals, and I ask him now, with all my heart, to open the doors for us. The only thing we're looking for is a better job.
I'm telling Trump that we are not all criminals. Some of us are fighters for a better life, but we don't come to provoke war or harm.
Now to Argentina. The fourth criminal trial against social leader Milagros Sala has started this Wednesday. She is accused of attempted homicide, a case that is known as the shooting of Vaso Pardo against Alberto Cardoso, the leader of the social organization Tecuré, an event that occurred in 2007, which she denies and calls political persecution. The sentence will be known in December.
We hope to unveil what happened in 2007 and evidence this judicial persecution that exists against Milagros Sala in the Jujuy province after the assumption of Gerardo Morales' government. He quickly started successive causes that kept her prisoner. Let us remember that the first cause that was initiated and by which it was deprived of freedom was a social protest.
Brazil's former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has reached 7 months in jail. Lula turned himself to a prison in Curitiba after being accused of alleged corruption. Many legal experts say that this was without evidence. At the moment, he was the front runner to win the presidential elections. This is one of the most controversial processes in Brazil and in the region. Thousands of leaders around the world have called for his release. Brazil's president-elect Jair Bolsonaro has met with his predecessor, Michel Temer, at a ceremony to mark the 30th anniversary of the country's constitution on Tuesday. At Congress, Bolsonaro said his government will continue with the non-elected President Temer's path. The two-day trip to Brasilia is an initial step towards the transition. Bolsonaro is expected to have another meeting with Temer in this regard on Wednesday. Environmental and social organizations are condemning a presidential decree that will allow oil exploration of the Ecuadorian Amazon.
The Yasunidos organization, on its Twitter account, posted a draft of the presidential decree that allows oil exploitation in the Amazonas area of Yasuní, home to the indigenous people of Guarani. They argue the move violates human rights. The draft bill is being processed after President Lenín Moreno held a consultation.
The lives of indigenous people is at risk in the Yasuní. The intention of the government is that this draft becomes a decree. Yasunidos is against the draft because it violates human rights by allowing the exploration of resources in part of the intangible zone.
Several groups confirmed this, so they are urging the Minister of Environment, Humberto Cholango, not to sign the decree. They state that the goal of the consultation was to protect the area, but they'll be endangering it if the draft is approved.
This draft is anti-constitutional, and it goes against the government's own consultation.
According to the director of research at the Catholic University of Ecuador, who spent years studying Yasuní, the area should not be touched because it's a place of sanctuary for the people who live there.
I think the need for economic resources can have positive results, but in the long term it will be regrettable. It will be extremely negative. The problem is that the government is one thing and the society is another one, and we can't agree.
Yasunidos expressed their concerns about the indigenous people at the Ministry of Justice, which no longer exists, so now they are lobbying the Ministry of Environment. They argue that the ministry permits oil exploitation of the Yasuní, in spite of reports informing them about the dangers.
We move to Venezuela. The country is getting ready for the upcoming municipal councilor elections with top electoral system and tightened security.
At our throats, we'll be working with the Strategic Command of the Armed Forces for the next elections, where our people will choose its representatives in the local governments.
Trade unions in Chile are calling for a national strike on Thursday. Workers are demanding a new pension system and education and housing reforms. Student movements and human rights activists are also set to join this strike.
All of us who are here right now are aware that it is necessary to take to the streets in order to condemn these government policies. They promised more jobs and higher salaries. But what we see right now are less jobs. The severance rate is increasing. The salaries have not increased, and the social security policies that should have saved us from this recession do not exist.
Over a dozen people have been arrested in Peru as part of an alleged ring that trafficked babies, that even includes the former police chief. According to the prosecutor's office, Raúl Becerra and 13 others, including a pediatrician and a gynecologist, are accused of running a gang that persuaded poor pregnant women into giving up their babies. Becerra was police chief between 2010 and 2011. Authorities reportedly believe Becerra's partner, Cynthia Tello, was the actual leader of this group. And hospital workers from all over Peru are on strike to demand that the government increase their budget. They left the hospitals where they work to take to the streets, and they restarted this strike that they suspended 8 months ago. On the first day of the strike, staff gather outside the Ministry of Health, accusing it of trying to divide the union movement. According to this, there are around 100,000 workers across the country. They are under unconstitutional conditions. Many of them have worked for more than 20 years. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel visited the Forbidden City in Beijing during his first official trip to China. Before this, that Díaz-Canel met with the leader of the State Council of the People's Committee, Wang Yang. The Cuban president will sign agreements on trade, renewable energy, and the Belt and Road Initiative. Next, Díaz-Canel will continue his tour to Vietnam and Laos. We'll take one last short break, but stay with us.
What is right. That's right. And we will never be ashamed for fighting for what is right.
Women to wear a hijab to represent us in Congress.
My mother and I felt voiceless and invisible, but she made sure I knew that on election day we would have it.
Thank you for joining us again. The Spanish Supreme Court has ruled that customers must be the ones who pay for the mortgage tax. Protests have erupted against the decision. This annuls a previous sentence that ruled that banks were the ones who had to pay for these taxes. Demonstrators shouted, "Supreme shame," and have urged for the right of housing.
We believe that it is unfair and they should not give the reason to the banks again.
The idea comes in favor of banks. Just it doesn't look fair, are partial. They are favoring the banks.
A group of citizens have protested against the transfer of the Brazilian embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Palestinian activists and social movements have gathered to urge Brazil's president-elect Jair Bolsonaro to reconsider this decision. They highlighted the solidarity that unites Brazilian and Palestinian people.
Our message to the Brazilian president-elect is that he has to reconsider his intention to transfer the Brazilian embassy to Jerusalem, because this goes against international law and all Palestinian rights, which cannot be touched. What is required is immediate withdrawal. We know that Brazilians are friends of the Palestinian people, and we will not accept this decision.
A South African opposition leader has called for restructuring of the United Nations and ending the practice of some countries having power to veto decisions of the General Assembly. Julius Malema, the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, has said it is unacceptable that one member of the United Nations could veto a decision that has been passed by the majority of the members.
Don't you think that we need to... And the US will use its veto powers to overrule that decision, and as a result, it will not be implemented. Don't you think that we need to do away with these veto powers by other countries? Meaning, maybe we should restructure the UN. We cannot be subjected to a permanent undemocratic practices which overrule the majority all the time when the superpowers do not have their way.
Leaders of the main opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of Congo will meet in Switzerland on Thursday in another attempt to choose a joint candidate for the upcoming presidential election. Felix Tshisekedi, son of a late veteran opposition leader, has emerged as a leading candidate following the legal exclusion of the frontrunners Jean-Pierre Bemba and Moise Katumbi. 90 students who were kidnapped in Cameroon in 2 separate incidents have been released. Authorities have not given details of the circumstances under which they were released. Authorities have spoken about this case that has taken international arena. 11 students were abducted on October 31st, and then 79 others were kidnapped on Sunday. They all belong to a secondary school in Mabenda in the northwest of the country. Colombia has recovered 216 exotic poisonous frogs that were about to be smuggled. Colombia's environmental police displayed more than 200 endangered frogs. They were seized after being hidden inside photographic film roll tubes. They were that small. They were abandoned in a bathroom at the airport in Bogotá. They were ready to be trafficked to Germany. And that brings us to the end of this news brief, but this and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also follow us on social media. Thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South. Until the next time.